right, quiet, set, interview, take one, and we rolling.
What's your name?
Eric Avila,
Where you from?
Puerto Rico.
How old were you when you started playing soccer there?
Oh, geez. When I was born, I was probably kicking a soccer ball. Well, yeah, so there's pedigree here. I came from a family of soccer players.
Oh, well, go into that.
But really my influence has not been there. It's just been like the kids here in Texas that go through the select soccer program.
Yeah, but you had a whole history. Like, you played in the World Cup.
Well, I played World Cup qualifiers.
Well,
yes.
yeah, so tell me, how did it go from kicking a ball out of the womb to that? What happened?
Well, you know, I love soccer, and that was really the dominant sport form at the time when I was growing up. And everywhere there was like a place to play, I played soccer. You know, I found a spot and something creative to do. I always have kind of looked at it as an art form, not really concerned with scoring or winning.
Does the rest of your family look at it that way, or?
Most people don't. I mean, I think that's a problem with youth sport today in general.
Yeah.
There's this overemphasis on going to goal, on scoring. If you look at a soccer practice today, most of the drills, you know, have some emphasis on going to goal. And, you know, this sort of competitive model has a lot of emotional drawbacks to it.
Like what?
Well, just because it takes away, you know, if you focus on power and performance all the time, other things get overlooked, other sort of non-traditional forms of athleticism. Just rhythm, the coordination, originality, you know, sort of those types of things that maybe vision, those types of things that kind of are important factors to winning, per se, or just to, you know, they're more in keeping with the origins of the game when kids were just juggling or trying moves out.
How do you do it then that's different than from that? Like, what do you do here that you're teaching that, or how do you teach that? I mean,
well, that's kind of our mission. It's trying to offer sort of an alternative to maybe what kids get at the club level, or even just recreational sports are very formalized. And really, if you look at the history of sport, from, you know, Greek times to, you know, Roman times, medieval, you know, the Renaissance period, really it's not until like the, you know, sort of post-industrial revolution that you start to see sort of quantification of, you know, sort of records keeping, all this sort of formalized sort of, and today it's, you know, that trend has continued. The kids are playing in a situation that's very regimented, and all the decisions are made by adults and referees or parents or coaches. So, you know, what kids are playing today, it's not really in keeping with what the game originally was. So over here at Avila Soccer, what I try to do is sort of create a place that doesn't have even soccer goals anywhere.
wow.
You know, you know, just sort of a creative, homier atmosphere, and just get away from scoring and competition. Instead of a power and performance model, I use what I call like a pleasure and participation model. Actually, there's a sociologist who actually named that Copley. But this model is just a lot more inclusive. When we do a soccer lesson here, we try for it to be democratic, you know, in the sense that, you know, kids are making their own decisions, and if they make a decision that we try to embrace it, you know, so it's more democratic, participative, you know, versus what they tend to get, you know, at the club level, which is sort of the decisions made by them, by coaches, referees, adults.
Was that always your philosophy, or did that change? Like, where did that come from? That's just in your blood, or how did?
You know, I obviously I played professional soccer, and I have a master's in sports science. But my biggest influence has been my parents, are both social workers. So I think it comes from them, actually. You know, because I think about things like that. Like, I wish my mom would have played soccer, but, you know, sports were not really, like, emphasized for people who maybe weren't obviously athletic. So I'm just trying to create something that's a little bit more inclusive. But it turns out, though, a lot of the top athletes do come here.
This was my next question. Did serious athletes train here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get the whole gambit of, talent. Kids with, limbic disorders and disabilities, and their parents just want them to play like normal at recess. But then we've had people, go to the MLS. We've had people in the national team pool. So just really, the real serious athlete comes here, and so does like a kid who has no obvious talent, but just loves soccer. And so I think we're pretty proud about that.
What can those people expect? What can the serious athlete get out of this, and what can the little kid who doesn't have any obvious talent get out of this?
Well, I think that one of the things that kids can expect is that we don't have an old school style of coaching. We coach through mechanics. If a kid comes to us with something that's kind of his own move that really is not an orthodox move, we don't say, don't do that. We say, well, let's look at the mechanics of this. Let's look at your torque. Let's look at your rotary momentum. Let's look at, the mechanical principles that govern all athletes. And we just coach through mechanics. We don't say absolutes like try harder or run faster or focus. What we say is, okay, let's look at your angle of release. Let's look at, your critical velocity. Let's look at, your follow through. So that's the thing they can expect is specific instruction and deep sort of diagnosis.
And on the other side of that, what would the serious athlete expect then?
What does a serious?
When they come here, what do
when
they
they
get
come
out of
here,
it?
I think that they're looking for flair, frankly. One of the problems is like there's a lack of creativity, and that's been a criticism of the United States at the national team level, that we don't have creative midfielders, and I think it's a fair, it's changing, but part of the reason has to do with soccer at the youth level, which is, like I said, it's very regimented. They're sort of fabricated players, and it's not something specific to the United States. You see this in a lot of Western countries. But in developing countries, you see creative players who are having to negotiate potholes in the street and passing cars and stray dogs, and it's getting dark out. And these types of players are very creative because they have to be problem solvers. So there's sort of a lack of creativity going on here. So what a top player can expect here is to have sort of a venue that they can come to sort of express some originality and think about adding some flair to their game.
Do you have a mission statement?
A mission?
Oh, yeah, what's your mission? Like, what is the ultimate, say that again, in the essence of a
that,
beautiful game?
I think, just the Avila method. The Avila method really isn't a method. It's a sociology. It's about getting kids to step up and sort of take ownership of the lesson, and just assert their own, what's inside of them, their own originality, their own ideas, and just have them manifest on the field. And it's about empowering kids that they experience a sense of attainment. And that's it. It's about the skills.
And that's a wrap.